I still ain't thought of an intro yet, so my intro's always like, straight up, yo guys. I'll find one day. I'm not sitting there thinking about an intro, you guys. Well, today obviously I'm going to be talking about, probably the title will give it away, is mastery overrated? And what I mean by mastery, I'm sure you guys know, like, is mastering, is specialization in a particular field, is it overrated? I was listening to a podcast by Tim Ferriss, and Tim Ferriss is the guy who wrote the 4-Hour Workweek. I'll link the podcast in the description, you guys. But it's really interesting because we live in an age where we're taught to pick a field and specialize in it, know more about that field, wherever it is, whether it's finance, science, business, it could be technology, computer science, wherever. Go into your field and specialize in it so you get to the top. Essentially, that's what society teaches us. The more we specialize, the more money we make. And it is quite true. The more you specialize, the more money you make in your field. But Tim Ferriss, he has a sort of different approach, which is hardly thought about nowadays. So he says that, look, there's a word, it's called the jack of all trades. That means a person that's diverse, a person that has knowledge in all sorts of fields. So he says the jack of all trades is probably coming back. A famous person who defines all jack of all trades is probably someone like Da Vinci. He epitomizes and he literally is the definition of jack of all trades. And this guy, Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci, he was an inventor, the scientist, the engineer, the artist, and he was good at all of them. He was literally the jack of all trades. And what Tim Ferriss is saying is that's coming back. And Tim Ferriss' argument is it's better to be a jack of all trades. He calls jack of all trades generalist, someone who has knowledge in different fields. For example, science as well as history, politics. They have knowledge like every single place. That's what a generalist would be. A specialist will be someone who literally has knowledge in one field, but their knowledge is so in depth they mastered it. That's mastery, you guys. So if you're in finance, your knowledge strictly finance, you know everything about that field. Tim Ferriss, like I said, he's making the argument that, look, jack of all trades is coming back, and he gives very, very good reasons, I believe. He goes, look, there's often a phrase that's thrown around saying when you master something, it takes you about 10,000 hours to master something. But he says that, look, mastering gets often confused with perfectionist or perfecting something. And he says they're two different things. Like mastering something, you can master something without perfecting it, and you can perfect something. He distinguishes both of them. Like, you can sort of master many things. And I understand where he's coming from when he says that, because I'm doing my finance masters. In my economics lecture, there's a girl who I know, she's literally specialized in her field. She's coming from a neuroscience background. So she's a neuroscientist. She's done her research, she's done a PhD, she's done a doctorate, she's done all of that, she's specialized in the field. But now, like, she's taking the time out and she's learning, she's going into economics and finance because she finds an interest in it and she wants to learn that. So similar to what Tim Ferriss is saying, you don't have to master one thing all your life. He says that, that 10,000 hour rule you have to do to master something, it's not necessarily the case. That's more perfectionist. He also talks about, when we learn things, to learn something, we don't need to know all of it. For example, he talks about something called the 20-80 rule, 20% to 8% rule. For example, language, the English language. We don't have to know the whole English language to communicate. 20% of the English language is vocab. We can use that 20% to actually communicate 90% of the time. So we don't really need to know the whole language. Believe it or not, if we didn't know English, if I didn't know English, I could have learned 20% of the English vocab and still communicated 90% of the time. My message would have been understood. I mean, it makes sense because, look, think about it. Relate that to sports, and I know I always talk about football, you guys, because I literally love football. So yeah, if we relate that to football, to actually know and play football, you don't need to know everything. 20% is just the rule. 20% of football, believe it or not, the rules just make up 20%. The rest is skills, philosophy. There's so much things behind football. You can just know 20% of football just to understand and play the game. But philosophy and skills and stuff, that comes with the rest of the 80%. So in that sort of sense, I understand how you can know a lot more stuff and specialize in some things. He also argues that, look, if we look at the world right now, the current world right now, the world is full of specialists, but it's actually the generalists that are leaders. He uses a really very well-known example like Steve Jobs. He says, look, was Steve Jobs the best programmer in Apple? And he probably wasn't, but he was a leader. He was an innovator, like I said. He had a broad range of skills. Yes, he knew how to program. Yes, he knew how to build relationships. He knew how to innovate. He had a lot of specialist or mastery fields where he combined all of that. And he says in different fields, he knows people that they're not literally the best at what they do, but because they got a broad range of skills, like broad range of communication skills, relationship building skills, other skills that they can bring, they're really diverse. Therefore, they're more likely to become leaders. He talks about people in the military and he says, look, generals, but they actually understand a whole load more of the whole battlefield. They have a bigger set of specialization than just specializing in one thing. So that's why generals are general. Leaders are most likely to be generalists. But another thing he argues, it's really interesting as well, is boredom. The opposite of happiness in so many cases is actually boredom, not sadness. It is true, I've read in so many other places. And he says people that are overly occupied and specialized in one field all their life, it can lead to boredom. Boredom in life defies purpose in many ways. Boredom in life, in a way, it's failure, and that's what he emphasizes. You're not happy, and in other ways you have failed, because boredom leads no purpose in life. In order to eradicate this, yeah, we should specialize in other fields. Not even specialize, become a generalist, become a jack of all trades. It also gives you confidence. Think about it, when you're actually in an argument and you're specialized in one field, you can only talk about that field, to be honest, and you'll be less confident talking about other fields. If you're just a specialist, you can only use that field, so you're like backed up already in a corner. The last point, the main point he literally tries to make is the fact that being a jack of all trades, you experience more peak performances in your life because you set a new record in different fields that you go to. You learn new things. And those kind of people that are jack of all trades are very open-minded, and he says most of all is fun. Them sort of people live more of a fun life. I'm not even talking about paying wise or job wise or skills wise or learning wise. I mean, just taking up a new sport like rock climbing or something like that. Some people will be very close-minded about that and be like, no, I don't want to do it. But sometimes the people that want to do different things, different activities, they're very open-minded. They have peak performances. They usually live happier lives in that sort of sense. There's a quote, you guys. He quotes Robert A. Heinlein. This is what he says. It's a really long quote, so I'm going to try and read really quick here. He goes, human beings should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equation, analyze a new problem, pitch a manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. That's him using Robert A. Heinlein, who's an author, science fiction author. That's his quote. I mean, look, this sort of stuff is so debatable. Look, I'm not solely sided. Like, I'm not completely convinced, you guys, that specialization is bad. If you really think about it and you relate it to like people I know, people I look up to, like scientists and stuff like that. I'm obviously in the field of science, but however, I'm learning other things. Like, I'm learning psychology, I'm still trying to learn finance, and I'm going into different fields, but I'm not totally convinced that specialization is that bad. I agree to an extent that specialization to a degree can be bad. I mean, can be very isolating and very just focused in one sort of aspect, but I don't 100% agree that mastery is overrated. I believe mastery in so many fields is obviously really beneficial, but how many fields can you master in a life? Because think about it this way, if Einstein wasn't a specialist in what he did and he suddenly started singing or started playing music, would he be the Einstein that we know today? I hope you know what I mean when I say that, because in some ways specialization isn't that bad. Some of the greatest people in life have come out from specialization as well. So I do agree with what Tim Ferriss is saying in most aspects, but I'm not totally convinced. So it's them 50-50 debates. It's not even a debate, it's just them 50-50 thought processes. I do believe you guys, especially the younger guys out there, look at different fields. If you want to specialize in science or something, if you want to specialize in history or in art, I mean, go for it. But also keep an open mind to other fields. Try and learn, take your time out to learn other fields. But like I said, I don't feel like specialization is as bad as Tim Ferriss is saying. Some of the greatest scientists, some of the greatest people in history have come out through a very niche specialization. Like Mary Curie, she's given away her life because of what she specialized in, which was radioactive material. At that time she didn't know, but I'm saying she had that one passion. When you're really passionate about something, then you specialize in that field. It's a different story. I don't think you get bored. It's more of a passion. Like you get biologists, evolutionists, evolutionary biologists, and you get physicists really passionate about what they do and they're really focused. You get psychologists, neuropsychologists, they spend their whole lifetime on psychology researching other people because it's what they do, it's their passion. So being a specialist isn't bad. It's the context you look at it at. It's not as bad as Tim Ferriss is saying, but I do agree with so many points. I'm sure he's got many fans. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss as well. You guys, look into it. Being a specialist and a generalist, it's not always a bad thing. There's a quote, and that's the quote I'm going to leave you with, and it does seem a bit biased talking about what I was talking about, but look, there's a quote, I don't know who said it. It's a quote saying, it's better to know one thing fully than half know many things. I don't know where I picked it up from. It must have been from some book I read or something, but yeah, it's very interesting. It's better to know one thing fully. But then again, like the other quote I said, I feel like I'm going on and on, you guys. I just want to end this shit right now. I have a bloody internal argument going on which one it is. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, you guys can tell me in the comments or wherever. You guys have to think about it, take away. I hope you took away something, because all I'm going to keep doing is having an internal argument with myself, whether being a specialist is better or whether being a generalist is better. I don't know, you guys. Anyway, I'm just going to leave it as that. That's just a wicked thought process. That's just a wicked idea that Tim Ferriss was talking about, and it just raised some internal bloody argument in my system. Look, I'm just still arguing with myself in my head. Anyway, you guys, I'm out.
I'm never gonna let you go, never gonna say goodbye, no.